Welcome to Victoria's Lounge. I'm Victoria Rubadiri. We're coming to you from Serena Hotel. Now, last week you got an inside look of what it's really like to be a woman in the media. Well, this week we continue that conversation with Pamela Sitoni, Catherine Gicheru, Kalechi Mumo, Carol Mundy, and Janet Mbugua. And they'll be talking more about their experiences of why they keep on keeping on in the media, creating a conducive environment for more women to have a voice in the media industry. Take a look. Catherine Gicheru is a veteran journalist who you may know by her byline. Catherine was a force to reckon with during her nearly 24-year run at the Nation Media Group. Her career there spanned from investigations editor to the Sunday Nation editor until she left to become editor of the Star newspaper in 2007. In 2014, she left the paper, but the news still runs through her veins. With over a decade of experience in the media industry, Janet Mbugua is currently a primetime news anchor on Citizen TV. Her command on the screen caught the eye of ETV in South Africa, where she worked as a news anchor, reporter, and producer. But Janet decided to take her work a step further as founder and trustee of Inua Dada Foundation that seeks to uplift the next generation of girls in Kenya. She may not be the cover girl on True Love or Drum magazines, but Carol Mundy is the powerhouse woman behind those publications. As publisher and owner of Carol Mundy Media, she has managed to tell stories of the East African woman for over a decade now. The former journalist and talk show host tells us how she keeps women raiding supermarket shelves every month for her publications. Kalechi Mumo is the radio queen we've listened to for years. With some 15 years experience in the media industry, her voice is one that cannot be ignored. She recently turned the big 4-0 and boy does she look fabulous. A business owner and recording artist as well, Kalechi is a triple threat who's just getting started in her world takeover. Pamela Sitoni started her media career at Nation Media Group, then took a hiatus from the media, during which she served in the development sector. However, the energy of the newsroom called to her, and Pamela responded, returning in 2012 as managing editor of the East African. She's the first female editor of the 20-year-old publication and has been holding her own, bringing the best coverage of the region every week. I was so excited to get into this part because we're talking about balance, personal life and career. Media is very demanding, and we heard that in the first part of the show. But Janet, new mom, married, how are you even making that work?
It's not been easy. I think what I decided to do was sort of like pace it and ease myself into it. The other day I did feel a little overwhelmed because there's no sort of like book for it. There's no syllabus that tells you how you're supposed to balance everything. I think having a good support system helps. I think having things in order helps, but the surprises still come your way. The emergencies that can come up at home and you're at the office, and when you say you have to go, you just look, oh, there she goes, making an excuse because it's just women problems. Exactly, women problems. We wouldn't have these issues if it wasn't. But I knew what I was getting myself into in a sense. I'm starting a family, I'll be in media. I'm hoping that I'll be able to figure it out as much as I can over time. I'm not saying I don't get overwhelmed, I do. I'm not saying I haven't had moments where I've nearly not cracked, I have. But I say there is a solution and I'm going to find it. Talk about it. If it's really bothering you, go to that person who you know you can confide in and just say, this is getting to me. And sometimes someone older, mentor who's been there, who's experienced what you have, and they'll say, look, this is what I did. Again, it's nothing that I can write a book on, but this is what helped me. So
and that's so tough because you're a public figure and people see you and you have to have it together.
Yeah,
it does not matter what you're going through, have it together.
All the time.
Yeah.
No, but you have to laugh on air like everything's okay.
For us in radio, the hardest thing and the longest problem that we had was we were sure that if you dare get pregnant, you're losing your job.
Wow.
And when I just joined,
Yeah.
that happened to a lady who was working with us. And she went for her maternity, she came back, no, we couldn't have your slot empty for 2 months, then it was 2 months. Her job had gone.
Yeah.
So right now, to see that there are women who have done it, we've been like this. Guys keep asking, when are you getting a baby? Oh, I'ma think about my job first. Oh, like this. And then within our industry, then Tina Kagere got a baby and she came back and her job was there. We're like, hey, it's possible. And so it's like, guys think it's the easiest thing. And I'm like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Being a woman in this industry for the longest,
Yeah.
they were like, oh, so you think you're going to bring your baby issues? And she's, they still have those issues where
Yes.
when her child is sick, her boss will be thinking, so you think you're not coming to work
There you
because
go.
of a child?
Yeah.
Right.
We don't care.
But doesn't that go
attitude.
back to the same thing we were saying earlier, which is where if you had a lot more of us up there making
Then
those
we would be able to
decisions,
fight that.
then
Yes,
we'll be
I
able
agree.
to create situations where you either work flexi type and or use technology to do that,
Yes.
and understand that getting pregnant should never ever be a career stop.
You're the big boss who people come to and ask, can I get this time off? When it comes to those decisions of creating that space and that atmosphere, and you yourself also finding that balance, how have
Okay,
you...
first of all, I had 2 of my children while working on a very, very busy desk at The Nation, and I didn't have the option of quitting my job and staying at home to look after. I needed the money, I needed the job, and I knew it was going to work. I always look at it like, why is it that when it's media, then people will ask those questions? We have nurses who have to spend the whole night at work, and they still keep families, and they're very good mothers. But now in my position as a supervisor, I can tell you for sure that I'm very accommodating to the women. But I will also not allow them to maneuver, and to malinga.
Yes.
Because I actually have once told one that you have 1 child, I had 3. But I don't always come late to work because I have 3 children.
Right.
So you don't also go as a woman carrying your womanhood around and saying,
Using it to your
I am,
advantage.
you're not the only mother. I mean, our mothers had us and they still worked and they still did very well in their profession.
Yeah.
So we really must also not overemphasize some of these things.
Yeah.
But I know that for a lot of women, they will drop out of the media as soon as they realize they're pregnant, or they decide they want to get married, or their husbands will stop them.
Oh, yeah.
It
There's
it
that.
Yeah,
really
there's that.
depends on what you want to do and what you believe to be your calling.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing we need to talk about. Why do we even go into the
Why do you
media?
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's because we feel we have that, we have it in our hearts that we can make things better for this country, and we want to do it.
Yeah.
So when you give up because you had to look after your baby, it means you're choosing one over the other.
Yeah.
And I think you can achieve both.
Yeah, and Carol, I'm curious because you are the boss lady. You own your own company, you call the shots. But still, there's life on the other side. There's a family, there's a husband you have to tend to. How have you made that work for you?
I believe there's no such thing as balance. I think at any one point, you're always going to have more on one hand than you have on the other. And you're just going to have to be very good at juggling. And what your priorities are. For Janet right now with a brand new baby, obviously that is her key focus.
Yeah.
And she has to just, the attention she needs to give her child is not the kind of attention I need to give my 13-year-old.
Yeah.
So I can give him a lot more or less attention. But what I did, because my job is very cyclical, so we have periods where we're very busy, which means sometimes we're working late into the night. Sometimes I'm not going home overnight. There have been instances I just work through and go home in the morning, change, and then go back to the office. When we have those sorts of moments, I just explain to everybody. Round table conference, family, and we just say, and I say, you know what, I'm not going to be available this weekend, that weekend. So my family sort of knows that there are these, what they call bad weekends, when I'm not available, or bad weeks. My friends even know that, and they joke and they call me and they're like, oh my goodness, is this deadline week? Okay, I'll call you next week or something. So I've had to bring people into the way in which I work, and also to understand that I can work at any time. I can work from anywhere, because now I'm running my own business. I have that liberty. But I didn't have that liberty when I was employed. Also, sometimes working and you've got bosses who don't understand that your house help has not shown up on Monday morning and you need to, figure out a solution. So I had, you have those sorts of situations. And they were both male and female. So even as we talk about changing it, it's not just about, sometimes you can have a female boss that really just doesn't care about what you're going through. So for me, I've had to get to a place now as a woman running a business where I look at my staff. Most of my staff are below the age of 35. They're in their childbearing years. They're getting married. So those are their big issues. But then begin to look and to see, okay, you do your 3 months. Then after that, we work on a flexi time where you can come into the office a couple of hours a day. And then the rest of the time you can go home, because you're still breastfeeding, but just give you some sort of understanding. But are there people who want to take advantage of that? Yes. But that does not stop us, me, from saying, as a woman, I need to create an enabling environment for young mothers, because those are the people I'm working with, for them to be able to juggle, maybe a little better than I juggled.
But because when it comes to also for women in the media, the whole thing of balance, we're not just dealing with industry and the workplace, we're dealing with perception from the public. And what they think we should be doing at this point in our lives. Janet, you had gone through that during your pregnancy, and people thinking, you should not be like this on air.
Why are you showing us that you're pregnant? And
Please, take it on. That's when I started venting. I'm usually quiet on social media. You get the haters throw things at you. We all know what that's like. I mean, I think I started earlier, and I feel like that's an advantage, because you get through all that. By the time you're older, you're like, you don't like me. Oh, do you want to hug? You poor thing. Too bad. I'm sorry. And I normally don't retaliate. I would just say, I can't. That's the time I started saying, no way you're going to say that I shouldn't be. And I just felt like it was an attack on women.
Yes, it was.
Completely. It was so sexist. And what does it mean to be too pregnant? I don't even understand. And you know what? 90% of the comments were from men.
Wow.
And that's what bothered me. So I used to ask them, how did you come into the world? I just used to start like that. What do you mean? That's just a very simple question. And so, I had the energy. I thank God I had the energy to work till the end. I really enjoyed my second and third trimester. I just loved it. I enjoyed being pregnant, and I had the energy, and it didn't really change me, didn't change my capabilities. And so that was such an affront, I think, to my rights. It was such a violation.
But isn't it, let me ask something, isn't it because that when we see, for example, you or any other woman in media, if it is TV or whatever, there's a certain public thing we are supposed to be whatever. We do not see imperfection. There are certain expectations, and those expectations are totally unrealistic, because I don't have the same when I see a guy on TV or wherever his shirt is off. Or whatever, or even, isn't this driven by the fact that we in media also tend to create the persona of a woman or women who are perfect? We were just talking about.
I think for the nature of the job, you have to at least keep an image.
No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong. All I'm saying is that the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect partner, the perfect anything, we never actually put on or even present on our screens or even in print the humanness of this gender.
It's changing.
Because
it's changing.
We are driven in a certain direction. You either have to be the Ruth, submissive, hallelujah, everything to you, or the Jezebel, because that is what we're made to see when women are portrayed in media. So in a way, it's how we portray them that makes it very difficult, even for you as a media person, to actually be any different. That is why people will tell you you're too pregnant.
You're too pregnant. I know that I used to get comments from women saying, thank you for making it normal to just go to work. And that's what shocked me. So I started engaging them and say, what do you mean? Tell me more. They say, my first pregnancy 4 years ago, people would ridicule me or almost look at me like I'm some kind of disease in the office because you're too fragile or delicate, or why are you here? It shocked me as much as it's surprising you. So I get women say, thanks for allowing it. And I say, it's a pregnancy. It's a beautiful thing. And if you're able to embrace it, go through with it, have a baby and come back to work.
Let's take a short break here on Victoria's Lounge. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. We're talking women in media and talking about challenges. Catherine, you know, because you're a woman, a lot of times the notion is you have to deal with soft news issues.
For me, what I think needs to happen, or what we should be doing, or we should be fighting to happen, is what I told some of my editors. I told them, you're not sending me for this thing. Because they are bullets. There's a bullet which is female and there's a bullet which is male. So it will just come straight at me, but it will hamper this guy.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if it is a riot situation, we're all going to be hit by tear gas, we are going to be stormed by cops, by the same guys.
Right.
If it means going to the morgue to count bodies, that stench is going to smell the same to this guy,
everybody.
just like you.
Yeah.
So for me, it is breaking down this, patriarchal, we need to protect this fragile little woman. We are not eggs.
We're not eggs,
Actually,
no.
we are tough eggs. We don't break. And even if we break, we don't break. We just crack it open.
It is breaking
And
that
for me,
stereotype.
what happens is when you actually, like you're saying, insist, I'm not going to be put in a corner.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be put in the velvet ghetto. Even if I don't know politics, even
going
this
to
guy
be-
doesn't know. When he
Yeah.
was born
When
with
he was born
politics
with
in
it,
his body. If it is going to report sports, I'm going to report sports. And I've done that in my life. But even if I did not understand
Catherine,
everything, but you have to
beyond-
push for it.
Beyond the argument of the content that we are kind of assigned, the perception that women have not earned their space there. You have gotten there only because you have slept with someone, you have a male godfather who's looking out for you. And so now you have to prove yourself that much more to legitimize your presence. And then that much more to show, no, I've earned it. This is why I'm here. Dealing with that.
That is very true. But unfortunately or fortunately for me, I think what worked for me is that Page One wasn't anyone. It's either me or somebody. And it used to be a guy. So I proved on merit that I am capable and I am able. Yes, I had to work 10 times as hard, and sometimes 10 times as long. But that was my choice, and it's because, by the way, it's not happening only in media, it's happening in all professions.
Absolutely.
Where it's because she's so-and-so's girlfriend that she's a big thief. Or she's so-and-so's girlfriend, that's why she's where she's at. Nobody, the only thing is, like I say, I ignore that nonsense.
Yeah.
You have to.
I used to tell myself, ignore the noise, go for Page One. That is my title, my broti, as it were. Page
And
One
you
was
give
mine.
yourself
And
that
I
agenda.
gave myself that every single day. If I'm not going to be on Page One, I'm going to be somewhere prominent. It's not only in media, but everywhere else. But that is always at the back of anyone's mind. If you're a woman, you're not just a woman alone, achieving on your own. You're
But there's somebody
representing
else.
all
Pamela, I
women.
can see you want to jump in on that.
I was just going to say, in fact, going back to your earlier argument about affirmative action for women, as women, you just have to work for it. Yeah, you don't go for it because you're a woman. You go for it if whatever profession you're in, and particularly media, you go in because you're a journalist first. You're not going in because you're a woman.
Right.
You're going in because you're a journalist and you compete with your male colleagues. And I think this is something that we have to start teaching even the young kids, you know, our kids, you tell them, you don't go into school thinking, oh, I'm the girl here. You go in and you compete with your male colleagues. You fight with your brothers at home. That is how we're going to go to work and deliver, and not be seen to be in a position because you're someone's girlfriend.
We've talked about having to, it's a fight always, constantly a fight to hold your space, to keep it. And sometimes you also pit against other women. Because there's only room for one woman in this top position. There is need, and I don't know if we have it, for a sisterhood or support group for women in the media to look out for each other. And that's something I feel has been lacking, and also to help the women who are coming in, the young ladies who have no idea what they're going to meet, you know, in terms of the environment and the people who are out to really do them in, and they have no idea. But I don't know what your take is on that, and just creating kind of like a sisterhood, if you would call it that, in the media. Carol, I'll probably put that to you.
I think every one of us here should start where you are at. Because I remember when I joined Nation Media Group back then, there was a lady there, she was the HR manager, I believe, Faith Braganza. And she called me aside, young girl, straight out of uni, going into this place where all these shacks and anything can happen and we know what goes on. And she called me aside and she said, you know what, this is how you're going to be. this is how you need to do things. And she was constantly on my case, looking out and looking over my shoulder. So there is a need for those young girls who are coming in, for someone not to look at them and watch them fall or wait for them to fail and say, okay, yeah, she's the latest, newest kid
addition.
on the block. Let's see, you know, how quickly before she lands in so-and-so's bed. So there is need for us, I think, wherever we are, to be that sisterhood and not to look down on whatever it is you're doing. There is that woman who will go and do hard news, and let's encourage as many as them that can do it. There is a woman who wants to do radio. There is a woman who wants to do human interest. But they all need to know that when I come into this space, there's a person who's gone before me, and that person in whatever media house. Because chances are, Victoria, you and I and all these lovely women are not going to sit like this again in a long while. But I think for the women who are in media right now, then they can take that personal responsibility to say, I will mentor 1, 2, 3, 4. I will be on the lookout for them. And what Faith said to me, Carol, if I ever hear that you're caught in any scandal, if I ever hear. So for me, it was always just that thing of, oh my goodness, she's here.
Right.
By the way, let me tell you
on the
something.
straight and
It's women, but it's also men. Because some of my best mentors were men. They were my editors, and there was a sub-editor or something like that. But really, it's because they understood what you're saying, the pitfalls. And for me, the mentorship thing is, yes, I'll mentor young women, but I also mentor boys, men, especially even male reporters, because the ones who actually see what I'm seeing, the ones who will put a stop, he's a sub-editor, but he's going to put a stop. He's not going to run in his section because he's a section editor of that section. He's not going to run a headline, what 10 things you need to do for your man, or why women, Kenyan women are not wife material. I mean, those kind of, or even topics like I've had on radio sometimes, they just demean women, and they're so sexist in that they give us no ability to even think or feel or even be human, to be individual. So you look for mentors. We were mentoring young women joining the profession, yes, but also men. Or look for mentors who are thinking beyond what I call below the waist. They are seeing your neck up, nothing else, because there's a brain up there, and they're very supportive in what it is that you're doing. Faith was very good. I've met other guys who are even guys who are better in my career. And they were men. And it's not that they were seeing me as a compare. It was no competition. It was like,
my colleague,
okay,
support her,
this person can bring something to the table, which I don't have, and we want to have this thing on the table. And I think it's the same thing she's saying. She's the only woman in that meeting as the editor. That has happened to me many times. But you sit in there, and these guys are only men, and they only see in one direction, you know. But you have to bring and
How did you
fight
navigate
for your
those
position.
meetings? Because, I mean, it must have been intimidating.
No. I have a point to make.
Sorry, scrap that. Forget that.
I don't care whether you think what I'm saying is important or not, but you will hear it. And if you don't want to hear it, you will have a reason to discuss it.
Just going back to what Victoria is saying, that you go in, you have your point,
and
we've been in
make
those
sure you
meetings,
put it.
you go in, you have your point, but every single person, every point you make, it's sort of driven into a sexist
Go back
way.
to the
So
point.
say Janet is in the room, and you keep going back to the point, and you know, you're in the room, and people are like, "Are you okay?" and whatever, and you're like, "No, I'm here. I'm able. I'm capable. I'm not pregnant in my head, so I can do this." You know, but I think you have to know before that when you go into that space, you will attract that kind of attention. So what's going to be your stance? Are you going to be the little girl giggling in the corner, or are you going to be consistent there, with your point, and don't take notes, don't refuse to take the minutes, and refuse to serve tea. But then also, I think the other thing that girls need to do when they're in those situations or in those sorts of meetings is speak up. Because I know that for a long time I felt that, I can't say anything because these guys all have basses, baritones. But whatever, be prepared, have your points beforehand, and never go into a meeting where you do not speak.
You have to say something.
You have to say something.
Carol, I hope a lot of our lady journalists are actually paying attention to that advice. Let's take a short break here on Victoria's Lounge. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. Now, Catherine, a lot of times women are subjected to doing light duties, if you want to call it that. How would they get out of that without maybe crossing lines and stepping on toes?
First of all, to get those girls to start thinking that they have something to say
voice.
and they actually have a voice
Yeah.
is to actually say no to some of those very sexist stories that we end up having to do.
And how would you do
And
that if you're a junior, you've just come in, you're an intern?
If you're an intern,
How do you do that?
do not allow yourself to be put in that niche where your editor is telling you, oh, we are going to run a listicle, because listicles are good, fantastic for clicks, especially 10 great things you need to do before you get to bed, 10 great things men hate about. Don't get yourself into those things. If he's telling you to do a listicle, please, I'll do 10 great things men are doing badly for women. If that's the other thing, if he only wants 10
Change
great
the
things
story.
or
Yeah,
10
yeah,
bad
change the
things,
narrative.
change it,
Yeah.
flip. And for women who are afraid to be speaking because sometimes they say, oh, I don't know how to say it, or I don't know how to read it. We women in media can also help fellow women.
Yeah.
I mean,
Voice the-
yeah,
To
voice
voice.
their
I think
things.
I like what she's saying. I find myself now mentoring as and where I can, whether it's on email or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And I'm sure, I think we all get
We all
approached,
do
please
that.
mentor me.
Yes,
It's
yes.
overwhelming because I say, you can't mentor everyone. The other day, someone was approaching me to take part in a conference that they want to do. And I didn't respond. I think it's one of those things you see and you're so busy.
Yeah.
And so the last message she sent is, I thought you were about empowering women. I thought you were
my.
about, So I sent her, and so this was on Twitter, DM.
Okay.
So I sent her a message saying, check your email. And the email I said, okay, yes, I didn't really get a chance to read through. But I told a piece of advice, instead of saying, I thought you're about empowering women, you could have phrased it as, I feel bad that I haven't heard back from you. I hope we can work together in future.
Yeah.
Because then you may have shut a door.
Yeah,
you know,
because,
so
because even I am allowed to respond and react.
Yes,
Because I also
exactly.
have feelings.
I have feelings, yeah. And I said we do get very busy sometimes as people in media or whatever. And that's why maybe we'll champion our own campaigns just because we know we can schedule them around us. She responded saying, you made me cry because no one has ever been that honest with me. And she said, in a way, you've mentored me even
because
before.
it's taught her something.
Yeah, it's taught her something. She said, you've taken the time. So I may not have done that before, but I just feel like there's a lot of young people who just want direction.
To even start thinking about that, a 5-year-old is watching me and thinking, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I want to be a Pamela, I want to be a Catherine. How does it make you feel, that pressure, and how do you manage it? I'll start with you, Kelechi.
I knew that was coming this way. I knew it. Especially because of what it is that we talk about on our
Yes,
show. And I know,
yes.
Catherine, you've expressed yourself in what you feel, and I'll put it to you this way. Like all of you, you all have your JDs. You all know what your directive is for your station, the direction that it's going. We do too.
Yeah.
And so I have a role to play when I'm behind that microphone. I have a character to play. I have a definition of who I'm representing, how I should talk. And the issue is, for us at least being two hosts, is that it's a debate.
Yeah.
Half the time, the things that I may be debating and the angle that I've been forced to take is not my angle at all.
Okay.
It's probably, I think, the opposite, but I have a job to do because there's somebody somewhere who will be thinking like that. Yeah, as anyone who's done debate knows, there's always going to be a pro and a con.
Right.
And that's what we take. And the issues that we're talking about are issues that these kids are talking about anyway. But the question is, how do you get them to think further on the angle? How do you get them to take their mind, okay, it's fun, it's what, but there's something else I need to think about. So yes, it's a role, and you have to do that. If I ever stopped and thought about who's listening to me, and I probably wouldn't do my job.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, because
Very
again,
true.
I've been given a role.
Yeah.
You know?
And I guess the same goes also for social media, because you have your Twitter handle. People are seeing NMG behind, Royal Media Services behind Carol.
Yeah.
So Carol cannot respond just as Carol.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the media part that she's
responding
representing.
as the company.
Exactly. Balancing that, or even Catherine, when you're seeing, a veteran journalist. So, oh my gosh, she is representing women when she's responding, not just Catherine, who has had a bad day, and I'm just responding to you on that particular issue. How do you navigate that?
I actually do not respond to issues raised to me as a person.
On social media now?
No, I don't, because of one thing. When I speak, and that's why I hate photos too.
Because it's Catherine now.
Because there is me,
Yeah.
there is me, myself,
You.
and I.
Yes.
There's the public me, and then there's the private
Exactly.
me.
And people
And
get
for me, the private me is more important.
Yeah, okay.
When I write, they have my byline. They've seen. Most people actually don't know me. I hope to God they don't know, or they forget
now
about
they
me.
know.
But the point has always been, thank God I was in print, not on TV or radio.
Yeah.
Even
It's not
radio
for
today.
everybody.
It's not for everybody.
everyone.
But the idea is that separating yourself from the public and what the public expects of you, or things they know about you.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
should know people. You
Yes.
know, it's very difficult. For print, it's much easier because thank God there were no photo bylines then.
Yeah.
And by the time you actually go into any place where
don't know you.
where your work, it's only if and when you introduce yourself as, oh, you're the Catherine Gisheru, you're the, but usually they don't know you, which is good.
A lot of people don't know who I am and what I do. And I have a Twitter handle, but I only tweet out stuff that has got to do
More
with the East
news-oriented,
African
yeah.
and nothing personal.
Yeah, yeah.
I just keep my private life private. And
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, you have a responsibility to people who are looking up to you.
Sure.
So what you post on social media, when you go out, I mean, because like particularly for all of us in media, nowadays women in media are celebrities. Sorry, Catherine, but it's just sort of like, yeah, it is what it is. That's why we put Janet on the cover of a magazine. You know, they're celebrities. And you know, you've got
doesn't
to,
it then
you've got to,
perpetuate the whole thing
you've
that
got to-
media is glamorous? It's 90% glamour.
But you say
and
you've got to.
But you can't
I think, I
10%.
think, yeah, I think,
unfortunately.
I think you, when
no,
you're
I know
there,
it's aspirational, but all I'm saying is
When
it,
you're there.
it deviates, it detracts from what it is
when
that we're
you're
in
there,
this business for.
when you're there, I think the thing to do
what you
is
do when
you
you're
need
there.
to understand that you still have a responsibility.
True.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you go out, and what used to happen in when we were, you know, print journalists, you can't drink yourself silly. Sorry, there are just some things that you're not gonna do.
Yeah.
There's some. I mean, there is that responsibility that you do have,
Right.
and I think you have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
I think on the issue of social media, I've had a few negative instances, but when it gets personal, because the thing with social media is that sometimes
anybody can be anyone.
people just want to say whatever they want to say.
Yeah.
So that I will not respond to. So I'm sort of like you, I will only focus on the job. If you're making a criticism about something that
does
we've
not-
done
Yeah.
that is related to whatever,
That's
then I
fine.
can respond.
Yeah.
But if you think I put on too much weight, lost too much weight,
come on.
grown
That's
taller,
the
short
noise,
taller,
that's
you know
the
what?
noise, that's
It
the noise you don't want to
doesn't, it
hear.
doesn't matter. It doesn't
Deal with it
matter.
one, yeah.
Yeah, Kelechi then Janet, yes.
I mean, now that you've mentioned that, my life, and when are you ever going to get married?
Oh, my.
Give your mother a child. You need to, oh my God.
Let me live.
Let me live. And again, I don't get to choose all these things when they happen. I mean, you know, the guy upstairs has his plan.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that, and then they get very personal of, why aren't you married yet? Why aren't you this? I'm like, even me, if I could answer that question, by the way, I would, because even me, I want to know.
So do you respond to them and tell them?
Yeah, do you
I mean,
respond to those
sometimes
times?
there are moments where I will feel so agitated, and I'll respond and say, when I have that private conversation with God and He tells me His real plan, I'll be sure to hit you up. I'll tell you what
Yeah,
He said.
yeah, yeah.
And then there are others who you just ignore.
And like, you know, as we wrap up, I just want to get your take on just creating that space and changing the narrative of women in the media. We have the power, we have the influence. So essentially using the platform for good. How do we start doing that?
Okay, first of all, I said we need to encourage more young women to come into the media, and mainly in the mainstream media. And then as media managers, we have to take a stand, and we have to take a position. Just like we'll say, you can't have teams that are just male only. We need to make conscious decisions so that even when you're hiring, you apply this rule that says where you have two equally qualified people, let's bring in the woman if she's equally qualified with a man. I'm not saying you bring in lesser women, but you need to create space and make that space even as you're promoting people. And for those of us who are in a position to fight, we need to fight. Because it's not going to come easy. Even when you're the only voice in the room, you need to speak louder and get heard.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Janet, I just want to at least close with you with your initiative of Inua Dada.
All right.
You've used, of course, your brand and persona to create an initiative that reaches out to the young girls.
Yeah.
Tell us more on that.
I have. Inua Dada was because I didn't understand why in this day and age, there was lack of access to sanitary towels. So that was what drove the initiative to start the foundation. But it's really about restoring dignity to the girl child, because in as much as, yes, people say you've empowered the girl child, there's so much going on with the girl child. By the way, it's not enough. There's so much going on out there. Yeah. That's shocking. Right. That makes you realize, after all these conversations we've had, this is still, and it's different from county to county. So there's a lot that we're going to be doing soon that's going to address deep, real issues, but we can't do a blanket thing because it's different from one situation to the next.
Women in media can actually start changing that narrative using the evidence, so that when they say those to women, we will tell them, number one, this is it. Right. Number two, this is it. Hit them with facts, so that they do not then therefore denigrate that conversation to your below waistline. That's
and on that note, we have to bring the conversation to a close. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Kelechi.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Carol. And to Janet. You guys have been wonderful. Your candor, your insights, challenges as well. The things that we need to change as women in media. I hope that we also take heed to that and open up the space for the young women coming into the industry.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our viewers. I hope you enjoyed. Please send us the comments using hashtag Victoria's Lounge on social media. That does it for us here. I'm Victoria Rubadiri. Thank you so much to Serena Hotel for the wonderful high tea. I hope you enjoyed the food too.